Shakir Mukhamadullin is the Shark with the most to gain from this season. Who else joins him on that list?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker at the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everyday, all you have to do, just follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at three players who I think have the most to gain from a successful 25-26 season. We're going to be looking at Shakir Mukhamadullin, Philipp Kurashev, and Alexander Nedeljkovic, and why I think these players could set themselves up to have a really nice offseason next year. So before we get to all that, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right. So as we continue to kind of get ready for the upcoming 25-26 season, I thought now is a good time to look at players who, particularly, guys who might be part of medium to long-term solutions for the San Jose Sharks, and why a successful 25-26 season would be very beneficiary for them, especially when it comes to long-term or big-time contracts. And we know the Sharks are a team that is, very clean books, and especially when you look at the defensive group right now, right, where there is one player currently under contract for the 26-27 season on the blue line, and that is Dmitry Orlov. And while we expect maybe Sam Dickinson and some of these other guys to be on the team next year, and including Shakir Mukhamadullin, it would be nice for a guy like Mukhamadullin to really kind of cement himself going forward. So let's start by kind of just as a quick reminder of what Mukhamadullin did last season. Shakir Mukhamadullin in 30 games last year with the Sharks had 2 goals, 7 assists with 30 shots on goal. Played about 18 minutes a night. When he was on the ice, the Sharks took 48.01% of the shot attempts, which was pretty, I think it was 6th best among Sharks players. Goals for when he was on the ice, they scored 39.39% of the goals, and both those numbers are at 5-on-5. Mukhamadullin, 6'4", 200 pounds. He's 23, turns 24 at the middle of January. And again, he signed a 1-year deal this offseason at $1 million. So Mukhamadullin has a chance to really set himself up for a very nice payday next, or either during this season or sometime during next year's offseason. He is an RFA, so no matter what, like, the Sharks are going to control his rights. But looking at how Mike Grier has been with his so far with his contracts, he's been very short term. The biggest contract he's given out is a 4-year deal to Tyler Toffoli, who was a UFA at the time. Even a guy like William Eklund, who, it seems like both parties wanted that kind of shorter term, but he got a 3-year deal at $5.3 million. Now, I don't expect Mukhamadullin to sign like a 6 or 7 or 8-year deal, which is still available, but I do, expect him to kind of look towards getting some sort of stability and not continually signing these kind of 1-year deals as the Sharks look to continue to kind of take that next step. So I think for Mukhamadullin, like the kind of the big factors for him to have a positive season this year and work towards a big time contract. The first thing first is you got to stay healthy, right? And some of this is not his own, not of his doing, right? The injury that ended his season last year, definitely not of his doing. Frank Vetrano, but this guy who has kind of struggled with injuries, right? The last 2 seasons, unable to finish whether in the AHL or the NHL, unable to finish his seasons because of injuries. Even coming into this year's, dealt with a groin injury before training camp. It pretty much knocked him out the first month of the season. Had to start with the Barracuda this year before making the jump up to the NHL. Where I think Mukhamadullin showed why he's going to be a really solid piece for you going forward. So that's the number one thing is just to try to stay healthy for Mukhamadullin. And if he can stay healthy and he's playing, 70 to 75 games, I think you're going to count that as a major win for him, right? And a guy who's 6'4", but I think still a little bit kind of lanky. And hopefully, I know he's rehabbing that shoulder, but hopefully he's able to continue to try to add some more muscle and add a little bit more weight, because 6'4", 200 pounds, and we've seen it. Like he's just a little bit of a lanky kid, which is fine. But I think for the rigors, especially playing defense, being that size, would be nice to have a little bit more, just a little bit more meat, I guess, on the blue line there. I think number one, yes, staying healthy. I think that's the biggest hurdle for Mukhamadullin. Number two is the consistency. And we saw last year, even his 30 games, where, he came kind of out of the gate with the Sharks. It looked really well, and then kind of a little bit of a dip. But before his injury, I thought was playing some of his best hockey in the NHL. And maybe that was that kind of like light bulb moment where things were starting to kind of click and slow down for him. So I think for Mukhamadullin, being that kind of 20-minute-a-night guy, playing on the second, most likely on the second unit or the second line, we'll see who his defensive pairs, how they kind of shake out. But just being that little bit more consistency, expecting him to play big time penalty kill minutes, and and hopefully start to see a little bit more of that offensive pop. Mukhamadullin is a guy who I think when he tries to, as weird as it sounds, when he tries to think, he is actually kind of at his worst. And I think for him, he's just a guy who just needs to kind of go, right, and just go. And we started to see more and more of that as the season wore on, and as he kind of got more and more comfortable with the NHL. And again, this is a guy who's played, 35 NHL games, whatever it is. Like, he does not have a ton of NHL experience, but I think this is a big year for him to kind of step into that role and take on a bigger mantle. And we saw, especially with his time at the Barracuda, where, before last year, he was kind of given a much more offensive role with the Barracuda. Last year, with the additions that they made with Luca Cagnoni and Jimmy Schultz and some of the other players, like Mukhamadullin played a little bit more of a defensive role and kind of more of that shutdown player. Now, I think for this season, trying to have a combination of the two, of being that legit two-way defenseman who I think Mukhamadullin is going to be definitely known for his defensive skills, but being able to chip in a little bit more offensively, being able to kind of start the transition and jump into the transition more. I think that's when we're going to see Mukhamadullin at his best. So if he, again, everything goes well, he stays healthy this season, we see some more of that kind of production from him that we've seen flashes of. I think Mukhamadullin could be a guy who, looks at a potentially 4-year, $4 million AAV type of contract going forward, who, again, turns 24 this year. That runs him through his age 28 season. And then maybe by then he's looking for, a longer contract, or you've kind of helped fill out the blue line around him, around some of your other pieces there. But I think this is a massive, massive year for Mukhamadullin to really put things together. And I think I'm excited to see how he approached this summer and what we see from Mukhamadullin, because he's given all the runway this year to win a big time job and put himself in a position to earn him a big time contract. And so hopefully we'll see that he's able to take advantage of it, because it's right in front of him there. So we're going to look at Philipp Kurashev, a new addition to the San Jose Sharks, who RFA, but could be a guy who returns to form and really kind of solidifies himself as a nice middle six piece for the San Jose Sharks for a while. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. You just realized your business needs to hire someone like yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If you have ever been in the spot where you need to hire like yesterday, the pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback, that's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, before we continue, do of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. If you haven't yet, perfect time to subscribe. One couple of big time guests coming up here soon. So I'm not going to say anything more, but some big time guests coming up over the next couple of weeks. And two, this season's going to be right around the corner. So you're going to make sure that you're getting ready for what's going to be a really fun 25-26 season for the San Jose Sharks. So make sure you follow along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. All right. Philipp Kurashev is a player who I think is in a great position to return to form with the San Jose Sharks. And again, maybe earn himself a big time contract either here or elsewhere, but still. So as a reminder, Philipp Kurashev last season with the Chicago Blackhawks, he played 51 games, only had 7 goals, 7 assists for 50, and with 54 shots on goal, playing 1343 average time on ice. Corsi for 43.18%, goals for 29.17%. He turns 26 right as the season starts. 6 foot, 190 pounds, and he's signed a 1-year deal at $1.2 million this offseason with the San Jose Sharks. Why I think Kurashev is a guy who really could have a nice season this year is because we've seen him not that long ago put up much more higher production while playing in a elevated role. If you go back to the 23-24 season where he played 75 games with the Blackhawks, he had 18 goals, 36 assists for 54 points in 75 games, playing about 19 minutes a night. That year he played a lot with some kid named Connor Bedard, who was a rookie that year. But Kurashev really thrived while playing bigger minutes, as you would expect. And I think for Kurashev, a guy who has an opportunity to win more minutes this season, this could be a chance to kind of return to form for him. You look at the Sharks' top 6, and you have some guys locked into positions, right? We know Celebrini, number 1C, right? We know Tyler Toffoli is going to be there. We know William Eklund's going to be there. We know Will Smith's going to be there. That leaves 4. Right? 4 out of a potential top 6. You have a feeling Jeff Skinner is probably going to be there. So we'll say 5. And then that leaves Gaudette, Michael Misa, Kurashev. Like there's plenty of other guys kind of fighting for that 6th spot in the top 6. Alex Wenberg, there's Colin Graff, just right there. There's plenty of guys here. Kurashev, though, I think is a player who could very easily win a top 6 spot. And I know there's going to be people like, we'll just put Michael Misa. Assuming Michael Misa is on the Will Smith plan of path to success, right? Where Will Smith started the season playing third line minutes last year, very kind of protected and sheltered. And then kind of the halfway point, we saw the training wheels come off, and he was playing a lot more minutes, right? And was playing kind of top 6 minutes that the second half of the season. So assuming Michael Misa, who I do think is going to play with the Sharks this year, assuming Misa's on that path, I think we see a more sheltered Misa as he gets used to the NHL before they kind of let him go. So we'll say, like, realistically, it's probably Gaudette, Wenberg, and Kurashev realistically kind of fighting. And we'll say Colin Graf as well. Like, those 4 guys kind of fighting for that last spot in the top 6 there, which is a much better position than we were last year, where especially as those guys kind of trickle down to that third line, where it was pulling a lot of fourth liners to go play on the third line for San Jose. But I do think for Kurashev, a guy who, right, if he's playing with a more dynamic center, whether it be Michael Celebrini or whether it be Will Smith, and I know we have questions about Will Smith at center long term, but both these players are dynamic players, right? And I think Kurashev could be one of those guys who's in a position to succeed because of that, because of his ability, I think, to play off these guys, play with these guys, help create offense, and then also just be a guy who can really take advantage of some potentially open looks for you. So I do think for Kurashev, the big thing will be you have to kind of come into camp, and you got to start strong, right? And really cement yourself as one of those top 6 players. Because again, right, you feel like you got 5 out of the 6 guys really locked down, between, again, Celebrini, Eklund, Toffoli, Smith, and Skinner, who most likely, like, those are your top 6 players there, trying to find that last one there. And I think Kurashev is going to be the guy who can really cement himself. Now, the big question, right, is, say Kurashev goes out and he repeats kind of what we saw from him in that 23-24 season, where, maybe he's like 15 goals, 35 points, or 35 assists. So, trying to do math on that, that's like 50 goals in a season, or 50 points in a season. That'd be a huge boost to the Sharks offense, which, one, needs more offense, but 2, could put him, like, then you might have the potential Kevin Labanc type syndrome, right? Where Labanc, again, we all know Labanc put up like 56 points, got his like 1-year deal where the Sharks were kind of messing around to try to like stay under the cap, and then getting a long-term deal, which of course we all know worked out horribly for the Sharks, right? And as they kind of wrote, like, he was never the same guy again, dealt with injuries, and clearly we can see Kevin Labanc thrived playing next to some guy named Joe Thornton. The problem with Kurashev here is he could be in that same type of situation where, yes, playing with either Will Smith or whomever, playing top 6 minutes, but as the Sharks young guys graduate, right? Musty, Chernyshov, Cam Lund, et cetera, Kurashev's going to get pushed back down the lineup here, and maybe this isn't a guy you want to fully invest in long term like that, but somebody else might. So I do think for Kurashev, he's a player who, like, if it's not with the San Jose, he could be a guy who really boosts his stock this season, because of playing top 6 minutes on what's probably going to be a bad team still again. But if he can be a guy who kind of flirts with that like 45, 50 points this year, he could really set himself up for a nice payday next off season. Again, whether that's with San Jose or not is a question that I think will be determined by someone not on the roster right now. whether, again, it's Musty or Chernyshov or, one of these young players who's ready to be a full-time NHLer next year and kind of pushes him down the lineup. But I do think, though, for Kurashev and his career, coming into camp, ready to go, could really set him up to have a really nice season for San Jose, and then probably earn a big time paycheck this offseason, and maybe he gets traded as a potential trade deadline type of candidate for somebody who wants to add a little bit more scoring in the middle six. So we're going to finish up by looking at the goaltender, Alexander Nedeljkovic, and why I think he, unlike some of these other guys, unlike Kurashev, maybe he can find himself a home here in San Jose. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool to help bring your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are for nerds. The great thing about Monarch is it's really simple to view your finances with your partner, especially if maybe you guys are, have your own finances, but are working towards goals together, whether it's buying a house, buying a car, or just planning your next adventure. They make it super easy to do that all in one place. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONNHL. All right, before we finish up, of course want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, when you're done with this episode, go check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There's no off season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter the most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcast. All right, finally, Alexander Nedeljkovic, a player who I think really could find a home here in San Jose. We know Nedeljkovic is a player who's maybe after a stellar rookie season with the Carolina Hurricanes, where he was a finalist for the Calder, kind of bounced around the last couple of years, right? He was quickly traded to Detroit, spent some time in Detroit, spent the last 2 years in with Pittsburgh, and has not been able to kind of solidify himself as a kind of that 1B for their, his respective team. In San Jose, he might have that opportunity. So Nedeljkovic last season, he had 35 games with the Penguins, had a 3.12 goals against average with .894 save percentage. Allowed 112 goals on 111 expected goals, so is -1 goal saved above expected with an 801 high danger save percentage. 6 foot, 203 pounds. He's 29 years old. Has 1 year left on his deal at $2.5 million. And I think for Nedeljkovic, a player who is also a UFA at the end of the season, could be a guy who makes San Jose his home. We know Mike Greer, not only was he, going out to try to find a clear backup for, or like kind of a partner for Yaroslav Askarov. You want to make sure that, he thought the two guys would get along really well, right? And especially when you have a younger player like Askarov, who's going to be going through his ups and downs as a full-time NHL player this year. Having a guy like Nedeljkovic, who's gone through those ups and downs as a younger player, has bounced around the last couple seasons, has played with a bunch of different guys on a bunch of different teams in a bunch of different situations, right? He's played on winning teams like Carolina. He's played on teams fighting for playoff spots like Detroit, and he's played on bad teams like the Penguins. So he's kind of a guy who's been there and done that for a lot of different teams. I think having a guy like that in the room and a guy for Askarov to kind of lean on, and you would, and yes, Nedeljkovic is a competitor and he wants to play games, et cetera, but I think we know the clear cut, like, this is Askarov's crease now and in long term, and Nedeljkovic's job is to kind of be a good, it's kind of that like backup quarterback thing, right? The backup quarterback, he's, especially when you have like a clear-cut starter, his job is to make the starter's job is like kind of be his friend, make his life as easy as possible, help him out, and get him ready to go. And Nedeljkovic, of course, is going to play 35 to 40 games this year anyway. But like this whole season is, at least from the goaltending's perspective, is to kind of get Askarov ready to be that like 55 game starter long term for San Jose. And I think for Nedeljkovic, if he plays well, and we clearly saw him play pretty well behind a bad Penguins team last year, and if he can play up to that same type of standard, right, maybe not the sexiest goals against and save percentage from him, but some of the analytics are pretty good. Again, despite having a horrendous defense in front of him, he could be a guy where I could see Mike Grier being like, "This is working out great, right? We want you to stay here. We want you to help Askarov to continue to be the best version of Askarov that we think he can be." And if Nedeljkovic plays well, that's the most important thing. Like, you have to play well. If you're a great locker room guy, but you're not doing anything on the ice, like, the Sharks will be able to find another one. But I think for Nedeljkovic, right, is coming in and really setting yourself up to be kind of that really strong 1B. And we've seen him again play really well. Yes, I know Carolina is a much better team, and that was a weird season in the 2020-21 season, but he's played pretty strong hockey behind some pretty poor teams, and we assume the Sharks are going to continually start to get better and better here. I think Nedeljkovic, there's no reason to believe that Nedeljkovic can't put up similar, if not maybe slightly better numbers than what we saw last year what we saw last year in Pittsburgh. So, but yes, if he plays well and he's kind of a great locker room guy and then really helps Askarov to kind of fully unlock what we think Askarov is going to be, I don't see why Mike Grier wouldn't want to kind of mess around it. And I don't think Nedeljkovic or any goalie, like, unless they're the guy, like, we're not going to see like a Martin Jones, like 6-year type of deal, but could you see the Nedeljkovic getting kind of a 2-year or 3 years at like $2.5 million? It's kind of similar deal, but just be like, we like what you're doing. We like where your direction is. And he's 29, like he turns 30 the middle of the season here. Like, he's, as a goalie, he's kind of still, I don't want to say prime, but like there's still plenty of tread left on his tire, and I don't expect his game to kind of fall apart here. So I think for him is just, right, be a good locker room guy, play really well, and just help Askarov. And I wouldn't see why and especially if he gets along and likes it here, I wouldn't see why, like, you can kind of solve your goaltending for the next couple of years between Askarov, who's probably, is going to be hopefully commanding a bigger contract here sometime really soon. Then Nedeljkovic, kind of that steady veteran who, if you need him to come in and play some games and help out, like, he can do that as well. So I think these three guys here, all with good seasons, all can set themselves up to have big time commitments heading their way, whether it's from San Jose, hopefully with guys like Mukhamadullin and Nedeljkovic, or if it's elsewhere, maybe with Philipp Kurashev, kind of uses as a bounce back rebound area. I think all three of these guys could be looking that way. So that's gonna be it for me today. We'll be back later this week. Again, we got a big time interview coming up. Wednesday night is when the interview drops. So make sure you're following along wherever you get podcasts, and of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at MyFryhole. Until later, bye, friends.